Hey, hello. How's it going? YouTube land. Hey, Warren. Good to see you. How are you doing tonight? We are a small group tonight, probably. Everybody goes out of town and does fun things over holiday weekends and such. So I may be talking to myself for a little bit, but that's okay if I'm talking to myself for a little bit. That's all right. So I titled this, It's All in Our Heads, mainly for me, because I was thinking today about how, like, of what so much of what we react to and what makes us happy or what makes us upset or what makes us excited or sad or joyful is all in our interpretation of it, right? Hey, Rick Spicer, how are you? Hey, Mon, good to see you. Hey, Kristen and Warren, or you can sing to us with Herman. Instead of talk to myself for a half hour, I could do that. You know what? Herman hasn't he didn't make an appearance yesterday. So, hello, everybody. It's Herman. I'm here. I'm here to start. I'm here to start the live. Hope you guys are good. Hope you guys are having a nice day. I heard Memorial Day is a place when people go do fun things like fish. It's when people go fishing, which is kind of a bummer if you're a fish head, if you're an ex-fish. Hey, Janet G. Good to see you. Good to see you. Hey, Slow Morrison. Good to see you. I think maybe you popped in towards the end last night, but if I have not said hello to you before, then hello. It's nice to meet you. We don't necessarily have a particular hard and fast, strict topic that we stick to. Sometimes I start with something, but really it's just whatever everybody wants to talk about, as long as we stay kind and respectful to one another. That's the goal, anyway. I'm in the process of trying to move things around behind me because I wasn't liking the way that the backdrop looked. And I don't know if it, but I don't know if it's getting any better. It's still a work in progress. We'll see. We'll see. Everything is a work in progress, right? All of us are, and our backdrops. Does your son start school this coming fall? He does. He starts kindergarten in the fall. He's been in preschool and early childhood school up until now, but he starts regular kindergarten this next year. We are excited and also nervous, but I think that's normal. He has a pretty good support system around him. Hey, Miss Sunrise Dawn, good to see you. Hi from North Georgia, everyone. Slow Morrison says, I used to go by Slow Mo, LOL, rebranded. I like it. I like it. Well, cool, Slow Morrison. Thank you, Rick Spicer. He's ridden the bus before, Warren. We might not be this year though, because the school is actually much closer to us than the preschool was. So it might not be necessary. It might be easier for us to just drive him, but buses and autism are a whole thing in and of itself. That could be a whole show, actually. I think so. Anyway, Janet G asks, Kristen, is your son switching from half days to full days once he starts kindergarten? Well, he kind of already was on his own sort of full day type schedule since his dad and I both work full time. He would go to school like in the mornings and then he would do an after school program until 5:30 and then we'd get off work and pick him up at 5:30. So he basically was doing full days already, but it'll just be, I guess, like official this year. It is walkable. I wouldn't have him walk it on his own just yet. Like, we would walk with him. That would be cool, though. If it works out with our work schedules, we might do it that way. That could be fun. And then we could burn off some energy before the school day starts. Yes, I agree with this, Mon. It was great to with Miss Sunrise Dawn was on, what is it called? The Chatathon? Did I say it right? I don't know, but It was a, oh gosh, a fundraiser for the SPTV Foundation, isn't that right? And so they were live streaming for like practically, what was it, like a full 24 hours? And he had on different guests and stuff. It was cool to see Miss Sunrise Dawn. I think I turned you were on like late, late, right? I think. Because like I tried to go to sleep and then I woke up and I turned it on and I saw you. So that was really fun. It was really cool. Rick, you think he'll enjoy the cars and trucks or guy thing? Oh, wow. Warren, your dad's elementary school is basically in their backyard. They even went home for lunch. That's pretty cool. Janet G's opinion is to skip the bus because it is a gong show. Yeah, did the fundraiser do really well? That would be really cool. I hope it did. That's awesome. I said it right. I called it the chatathon. That was the correct word for it. Awesome. 2 a.m. Eastern Standard to almost 5 a.m. Yeah, I knew it was somewhere around then because I knew that like I started watching Chow, then I fell asleep, and then I woke up and I saw you and I was like, "Oh, it's my friend. I see Chow Yun Smut. I see Miss Sunrise Dawn. Oh, hi, Miss Dragon. It's so good to see you. Good evening, everyone. Watching the granddaughter fall asleep. Aw, that's really sweet. Hmm. Is she just like drifting off? That makes me happy because she's the little one, right? That's really cool. Hey, Carrie Ann, good to see you. I'm so glad you're here. So I think like I only discovered this through Chow Yun Smut, through Cricket's channel. So I think Chatathon was for fundraising for the SPTV Foundation, I think, wasn't it? I think I was a viewer, at least for parts of it. Oh, sweet. Awesome. Chad announced this morning that they'd raised $7,400. That's awesome. That's great. And I heard later that they're up to almost 10K. That's fantastic. Just through like, so how does that work? Like, do you, um, like you just go on live stream 24 hours a day and like people give super chats or is it like on a monetized channel? I'm really like I just don't know all this stuff because I don't know how YouTube works. I'm kind of I clicked live one day and I can post videos. I know how to do that, but I don't know how like fundraisers on YouTube works. So I'm just curious because that could be a cool tool for all kinds of things, you know? If it's viable. Cool. Slow Morrison says, thank you for doing the NPD video. Appreciate those that do their best to destigmatize mental illness. That is always something I would like to strive to do is to destigmatize mental illness. I have had my own struggles with it. I've had loved ones, friends, and family that have struggled with mental illness. Open secret, almost every therapist you know has either had their own mental illness or someone close to them has it. And that's part of how they get into the field in the first place. Psychiatrists, too. That's what they call an open secret, and that people don't necessarily talk about it much, but that's how it works. But I don't think that the stigma serves any it doesn't do anybody any good to stigmatize it because if people don't talk about it, people don't feel like they can reach out for help and they don't feel like they can make any improvements. And that goes for not just those isolating mental illnesses, that goes for other maybe more I guess what some people might say are more dramatic mental illnesses, like your borderline personality disorder, like your narcissistic personality disorder. And I've actually been like that's kind of been my deep dive researching focus lately is narcissism and narcissistic personality disorder because like everyone I've met people who I could say like maybe they were, maybe they weren't, but I'm not really sure what does that look like exactly. Um that's a particularly mysterious one because people don't usually people who have narcissistic personality disorder, they don't show up for treatment. Like they don't show up for therapy. Like if you find someone that gets that diagnosis, it's often like maybe a spouse will drag them or maybe it's in some kind of correctional setting or something like that. So it's interesting to me, but it's also very very intense too, because there are a lot of people who have legitimately suffered abuse at the hands of people with narcissistic personality disorder. So it's heavy subject matter as well. But narcissistic personality disorder also it comes from something, it develops somewhere. And usually that's around some kind of a trauma or some kind of a loss of a sense of self, something that at some point that person did not control. They perhaps should be accountable for their behavior now, but they didn't become who they are on purpose necessarily. Um, so it's just interesting to me. Warren asks, is there much of a debate among SPTV, Lifeboat, etc., as to whether Scientology qualifies as a cult? I have not seen much debate on it that I have observed. Most of what I have seen is kind of like most people that I have interacted with have at some level agreed that it is a cult or at the very least an abusive high control group. I have not encountered anyone in those communities arguing that it's not a cult or that everything's fine. But that also could be the nature of what SPTV is, right? It stands for suppressive person, right? Which is what Scientology would call like someone they have excommunicated or they don't want anything to do with. So it's a community that was started by former Scientologists who are trying to expose abuses. So I don't think that I have not heard anyone argue that they don't think it qualifies as a cult. And you can look at that from a number of different perspectives. I defer to the perspective of the people who were in it and involved in it. They would know better than anybody what their experience was of it. Let's see. Oh, she's still talking in bed. Yeah, my little guy was fast asleep and then he started talking. His dad went in to check on him. But I think everything's cool now. But if I get up to walk away, y'all will know why. But dad got him for now. But he was out cold. And then all of a sudden, so I don't know, something bugged him or maybe a noise or something like that. Hmm. But he'll do that. He'll talk himself until he falls asleep. He'll just keep kind of babbling and he'll play until he basically passes out. That's a good question, Rick. I have no clue. I have no clue. No one will say how much money the previous charity had, the aftermath. No one will say, but Fight and Fight should have that fact. Yeah, I don't know anything about how much the Aftermath Foundation raised or anything like that. So, okay, so this is interesting. So this is educational for me. Thank you, Miss Sunrise Dawn. So to do a fundraiser directly through your channel, you have to have 10,000 subs. Oh, okay. Well, I won't be able to do that for years. None of the channels involved last night have that many. So we just posted the link to donate directly to the foundation. Oh, okay. So you could do that even if you don't have 10,000 subs. Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know. That's cool. I mean, because I will be working locally for a counseling agency and in mental health care, and there's all kinds of opportunities for fundraising and things like that. So just curious. Oh, Janet G says when my twins were babies, they would babble and laugh together in their cribs. Oh, then all of a sudden silence. Zzz. I love that. I love that. Hey, no worries, Miss Sunrise Dawn. Do what you need to do. Do what you need to do. Yes, there's lots of messiness around that whole thing. I'm glad that but you know what? I'm glad that organizations exist that help people who are trying to leave a high control and abusive situation. Um, Particularly the C organization, they don't have any connections to the outside world a lot of the time. They don't have a bank account. They don't have any place to live. So it makes it really, really difficult to leave if you want to. Just, instrumentally, like you don't have the physical things you need to survive. So I'm glad that organizations exist that can help people leave. That's right. You wrote Rick Spicer is a published author, you guys. He wrote books on the subject. SPTV repair manual, I think, was one of them, right, Rick? Oh, the little one helped clean her great-grandparents' graves today. Oh, that's so sweet. I'm glad that I'm glad that, um, you guys were able to do that tradition today. It sounds like it was very meaningful for you guys. I love genetically modified skeptic Warren. I haven't been keeping up with his most recent videos, but I've really enjoyed his take on things in the past. Genetically modified skeptic has discussed the BITE model for cults, behavior control, information control, thought control, and emotional control. Do these all happen regularly? From what from the accounts of ex-Scientologists, I would say yes, particularly at the, I guess, most dedicated levels of Scientology, the Sea organization. Um, they have to they have this process called auditing. They have to sit in a room and answer very personal questions. They're not allowed to leave. They engage in thought stopping techniques, and they're not, and as far as emotional control goes, they're not supposed to even have emotions. Um, I think if you watch, I think like a good resource I would direct you to is Relatable Reese has some material regarding her experience growing up as a child in Scientology, and not even in the Sea organization, but just a child being put through the auditing process. I think if you watch any of that, it's evident pretty clearly that it meets all of those criteria for a cult, even if you're not in the Sea organization. I would say that it does. And I think if you looked into any of the material that Stephen Hassan has put together on the BITE model and its application to Scientology, I think he developed the model. I think he would likely agree with you, or I think he would likely agree that it meets those criteria. I have not found out what kind of fish Herman is or was just yet. I do still need to find a copy of the picture. I need to ask my parents about that if they have it somewhere. Oh gosh, I don't even want Miss Sunrise Dawn, I don't even wanna know what I sound like on 2 speed. That must be amusing. I hope it's amusing and not terrifying. I hope. Janet G says, "Yeah, I would say yes, this is the norm in Scientology from everything survivors have said. When you look at all those parameters, it does align as a cult." Yeah, I mean, Warren, you seem like a really educated guy, so I'm sure I mean, I'm sorry, I don't mean to assume gender. I know that you can't do that, especially on the internet, but you seem like an educated person. When I look at what For me personally, when I look at what a religious or spiritual or whatever kind of group you want to call it, when I'm thinking to myself, is that a problematic, high control, possibly a cult type situation? Um, the most important perspective to me is the perspective of those who have been involved into it and have left it, um, possibly, and then what you see, what are the effects you see from it? Um, for example, like a religious organization, typically you're going to see some kind of good come from that. There's going to be some kind of, efforts towards helping fellow mankind, things like that, working for charities. I've never really seen anything like that happen through Scientology. I don't see them distributing food at food banks. I don't see them trying to help house homeless people. I don't see that organization giving back to its communities in any way. I see it charging people a lot of money for this auditing that they do. And children that are born into it don't have a choice about it. And they're often asked very inappropriate, abusive questions as small children in these auditing sessions. Again, I would refer back to Relatable Reese. She did some really good material, like some videos on what her experience as a child in auditing and Scientology was like. I do have the beautiful future pictures that you sent me, Mon. I'm gonna pull those up in just a second. Hi, Sandy Wandy. Good to see you. Good to see you. I haven't heard my little guy talk in his sleep, but he does like make little noises sometimes. But usually when he's out, he's out. Um, I talk in my sleep, apparently. I was not aware of this fact until my husband told me about it. I don't do it all the time, but apparently sometimes I'll get like upset or angry in my sleep, and he'll have to like push my shoulder or like wake me up momentarily, be like, "It's okay, Kristen, everything's fine." Um, but I didn't know that because you would have how would I know that I talked in my sleep if someone didn't tell me? I wonder about this, Warren. That's a good question. Do twins nearly always sleep at the same time? The sleep when your baby sleeps prescription seems like it would be tricky otherwise. I don't know. It looks like I know that there are parents here who have had twins, but so my husband is a twin. So my mother-in-law had twins. He has a twin sister, and so she had two at the same time. And she told me that sometimes they would sleep at the same time, but not always. Like it just depends. Like the way she described it it was difficult to keep up with them, and it was difficult for her to get some sleep because just when she would finish feeding one and they would drift off to sleep, she would then need to feed the other. So it worked out if she had someone home with her to help, but when it was just her, it was difficult. Yes, the channel Growing Up in Scientology is also a great resource for if you're looking about background in Scientology. Um, I like that's one of the first channels I started getting into, but there is a lot of content on that channel. So that's another good resource as well. I love this, Rick. I think we should all think like that. I love that. Miss Dragon says, I won't be live tomorrow. I didn't get to mow today because she wanted to stay with us. Once she's gone, I get to mow. Oh, bummer. Well, I'll miss you tomorrow, Miss Dragon, but we'll be here when you get back. We'll be here. I love watching Miss Dragon's lives in the afternoon. I always like you call Miss Dragon calls it her menagerie. And and it's a really cool, like calm vibe. We talk about kind of like this, like we talk about whatever comes up. Sometimes it's just silly, and if there's something serious, we can discuss that too. And Miss Dragon is a great host and has a great vibe, and I always appreciate her lives. No, I'm not an ex-Scientologist myself. I was never in Scientology. How did I find the ex-Scientology community? So, rewind back to, the days of South Park. I don't know if you're familiar. They did an episode called Trapped in the Closet, and the whole thing was just panning Scientology, was just making fun of it. And at the time, I didn't know anything about it. I never heard of it, but my brothers and I thought South Park was hilarious. And the whole time they're talking about it, they have this little ticker going across the screen that says stuff like, "This is what Scientologists actually believe." And then just being the way we were like, "I wonder if that's true. Is that really what Scientologists believe?" So we went out and found like half price copies of Dianetics and like other books and stuff like that and looked into it. And sure enough, it's like, oh, that actually is what Scientologists believe. And it kind of stopped there for a while. But at some point, I got into reading memoirs by people who had left Scientology. I think that the first one I read, actually, he was not an ex Scientologist, he was just an investigator of it, was A Piece of Blue Sky by John Atack. And I think it was originally titled Let's Sell These People a Piece of Blue Sky by John Atack. And then the title was updated to just A Piece of Blue Sky. But it was a very comprehensive history of the development of the Church of Scientology, like the good, the bad, and the ugly. Some of the abuses that occurred very early on some of the ships that the founder, L. Ron Hubbard, had. That's a great resource as well. And I just kind of dove into it. I think partly I've always been fascinated with cults and high control religious groups because it's a part of the human condition, right? And I've always been interested in the human condition and why people choose to do the things they do and how they get involved in the things they get involved in. And I think cults are one of those things that are kind of evident that people are searching for connection to one another. People are kind of starving for feeling like they belong somewhere. And a cult can kind of give sort of a false sense of belonging. But the problem is you don't get to be your authentic self. You have to behave precisely the way that they want you to behave. So it gives you this false sense of belonging. Um, and then just as this was way before I ever went to school to try to learn to be a therapist or a counselor or major in psychology or anything like that. But I kept being interested in it as time went on from the perspective of a therapist, because if I ever worked with somebody who had been in that situation, it really is, you're basically working with a trauma victim, but it's a very specific kind of trauma. And I wanted to understand that better so that I could better help someone who'd been through something like that. That was a long answer. I hope that helped. It can be, I think, because you make a good point, because the auditing they do when they're asking all these very specific questions, quite often my understanding is they're recording all of the answers. So, they're being asked very personal questions about your sex life and like your most embarrassing moments and things like that. Most people don't want that stuff like out in the whole world for everybody to know. Um, yes, this is how you spell it. Stephen Hassan. It's it looks like Hassan, but he pronounces it Hassan. Um, his first book, I think, was Combating Cult Mind Control. He has an interesting backstory. He was actually a member of the cult in the 70s called the Moonies, and he went through a deprogramming process and he left, and he's a clinical psychologist, like in practice, like he works with clients, but he also has written these books and developed this model about how to identify, is this high control group potentially a cult. But he has some really helpful and very interesting material, and he has his own YouTube channel as well, I believe. um, I can't remember the title of it off the top of my head, but if you were to search his name, I'm sure you'd find it. Yep, that is another way tying it all together. So Tommy Scoville from The Lifeboat did some streams with Aaron Smith Levin of growing up in Scientology, and a lot of people who had been following the anti-Scientology, ex-Scientology community found The Lifeboat this way, and like that's how I found The Lifeboat, and so hopped on board that way. And I still follow both communities, but I found more, I guess I found more connection through the lifeboat. I think just because it was at the time a smaller community, and I don't know, it was a different vibe. There's like live chats where people talk back and forth. And it's just a different kind of thing. Yes, I would agree with Janet G here that the best thing to do is to listen to those who share their experiences in Scientology. I always listen to what they think, and like everything, there's a broad range of experiences for sure. And just to like be clear, like I have met people here and there who say, "Hey, I was involved in Scientology, like I was a public member and I never had the experience. I never experienced abuse. I never experienced this kind of mistreatment." So there's different perspectives out there. There are people who will tell you that. But then there are also a lot of these stories of people who did experience horrific things. So I feel like if there's that many of those stories, then clearly it's a systemic issue and it's not just one-offs here and there. Oh man, you're all over the place, Sandy Wandy. Supposed to fly back to California. Safe travels for sure. Safe travels. Or when I said you were educated, I appreciate you saying this. I'm a math professor and attended a liberal arts college myself. What gave it away? You ask really good questions. I don't know. Like, I don't know. And I don't know. You ask good questions, but I cannot hang with you on the math professor stuff. I cannot do math in my head at all. That's where you will leave me in the dust if you start trying to teach me math. I had to repeat algebra, I can hang with, verbal and writing and reading, but, I will get left in the dust with anything beyond, like, I don't know, middle school algebra. Oh, this is good, Janet. Janet says my twins did sleep at the same time, but that's because I got them on a schedule that way for my sanity, and I had help. Mom, sister, husband, so we fed them at the same time. When we had my kiddo, that's what my, um, father-in-law said would help is to get him on a schedule because that's what they did with my husband and his twin sister. But at the time I had my son, what was in vogue at the time, and I don't know about now, so this was 5 years ago, but the thing at the time was, like, that you should do on-demand child feeding, like, infant feeding is, like, rather than, like, like, you should let them set the schedule kind of thing. That's what they were, like, coaching us all to do is, "Oh, just let them figure out what the schedule is," but, I mean, I don't know, like, within reason, obviously. I mean, a newborn, they're gonna cry when they're hungry pretty reliably every couple of hours. Um, but if you can figure out, like, right before that happens, you can get them on a schedule, and that way you can kind of get into a rhythm with them. It took a while to get into a rhythm like that for me with my little guy when he was a newborn. Yeah, good old South Park. Yeah, heck yeah. If you look into the history of L. Ron Hubbard, it is wild. My favorite book on that subject is gonna be the book Faced Messiah. That one is eye-opening as heck. That one is eye-opening as heck. But there's even, like, moments in that story of his life where he's almost a little bit sympathetic, which is, unnerving, right? Because he did these horrible things, and he treated people horribly, and he created something that treats people horribly often. Um, but there's a part of that book where he has his first son, and his first son was born prematurely, and he and his son's mother at the time would, like, feed him with a dropper, and he would, like it describes him, like, trying to help nurture his tiny premature son, and it's just not what you would expect. But then later in the book, he does all kinds of horrible things too, so but it just kinda brings home people are complex, you know? I was actually similarly motivated to look into Mormonism. There's a channel that I follow on Mormonism or ex-Mormonism or whatever your preferred terminology would be, called the Mormon Stories podcast, and that one's pretty interesting if you're interested in looking into that whole subgenre, and it is that podcast and that channel is what it sounds like. It seeks to interview Mormons, past Mormons, ex-Mormons, current Mormons, and just, have them tell their stories and their experiences of life in the church or life after. Um, it is run by a person who's critical of it, the way that it's run, but he really seeks to give people a space to tell their stories. So that's a really good resource for that I enjoy a lot. A math question. Oh no. Well, I can't hang. I gotta go if you're asking math questions. Bye, guys. I have a math question. I need a second opinion. $240 million after tax earned, and you've already lost me. In 8 years, 70% tax. What is the gross earn? You've already lost me. I'm not joking. You've already lost me. The YouTube channel Cults to Consciousness is a good source of firsthand stories in different high control groups. I love that channel too. She's great. I like her. He was. This is a very interesting part of his history. He hung out with no Jack Parsons and not Aleister Crowley directly, but, like, people that followed Aleister Crowley and was doing all this, like, black magic kinda stuff. Um, that's in the book Barefaced Messiah as well. It's pretty interesting. Hey, Crossover Paranormal Society, good to see you. Thanks for coming to hang out with us. Yeah, I would help you with your math problem, Rick, but I'm incapable. I'm sorry. But I trust Warren. It seems it would be 800,000,000. I trust Warren. Oh, yeah, so some people found, SPTV through Cults to Consciousness. I'm trying to remember what I found first. I think I found Aaron Smith Levin and Growing Up in Scientology first. I think that may have been my first YouTube channel about Scientology and ex-Scientology that I came across, and then it branched out from there, and I found other creators from there. And then, of course, after the A&E documentary series, Leah Remini, Scientology and the Aftermath, that kind of blew things up in the public consciousness afterwards. So I think probably you saw more people searching this on YouTube as well. Those channels got more traction, more followers, things like that. Yeah, Steven Hassan is a smart guy. Actually, um, there's also another if you're interested in cults and what makes a cult and the different ways that could look, there was a really good documentary on Hulu that escapes me for now, but it was based on a book, on a memoir written by someone who had gotten wrapped up in it called Slonim Woods 9, and, this was actually a much smaller group, and it was, like, based around this one guy, and it was, like, a handful of college students, but, like, he drew them into this sort of web of high control and narcissism, and he had them, like, believing in all of these wild things, and, that was a really good documentary, and it's a really good example of how a small group can develop this kinda toxic cult-like environment. Janet G says, with my twins, they were in the 4-pound range when they were released from the hospital. Oh, that's so little. I was told by a pediatrician to feed every 3 hours for growth and weight gain. Yeah. So mine was about 5 pounds when we brought him home. He was 5 pounds, 9 ounces. And he did drop a little bit of weight, like due to water weight and what newborns do. And our pediatrician said, "Don't let him go longer than I think it was like 3 or 4 hours without eating." Like, some people have these wild stories when they bring home their newborns from their hospital about them sleeping, like 10 hours, and I actually met some of those people. That was not my experience. Uh, I think it was after he was a little bit older, I went to Mommy and Me yoga classes, which is basically a gentle yoga class you can bring your baby to, and you can, like, play little games with them and, like, cuddle them and, like, it's tolerant if you have to change diapers and they start crying and stuff. But there was a couple there that talked about, like, "Oh, as soon as we brought him home, he slept through the night 10 hours," and I was just like, "Not fair." But, different kids need different things. That's all. Okay, cool, Miss Dragon, no worries. In and out listening, gotta get her clothes washed for tomorrow. They're going to try to get to Rainer. Okay, okay, cool. Your cousin converted to Mormonism, Sandy Wandy? That's interesting. I, my aunt was married to a guy, and my aunt is Catholic. She was and still is Catholic. When they split up, he joined the Church of Scientology, and he ended up and I was little at the time, so I wasn't really that aware of what was going on, but they divorced, he joined the Church of Scientology, he remarried someone in the Church of Scientology, and he was a public member until he died, but I think he died of esophageal cancer, I think. Like, I looked him up recently, I was like, yeah, because he was my uncle for a while, like, I would see him at family gatherings and stuff, and then he was just not around anymore after they split up, and I kinda wondered, like, whatever happened to him, and so I searched him, and that's how I found out he passed away a couple years ago. And I wonder if he was discouraged from seeking chemotherapy or anything like that. I hope not. Warren says, "I don't know if you remember this, but at some point you mentioned a job you found fitting because people came in strongly disliking a process and you were able to make it better for them." And I responded that I like my job for a similar reason. I love this. I love this. Do you feel like you can make math not as terrifying for people like me, because that's good work. That's good work. Yeah, it was one of those things where I think I probably have what is called dyscalculia, which is like dyslexia, but with numbers. Like, if you give me like a spreadsheet full of numbers, like I will have a hard time holding on to them. Like it'll almost feel like they're shifting. I'll have a hard time keeping track of them. I always had to use graph paper to do like equations to keep everything lined up. And it would always just take me longer than most of my classmates. Like I could do it, but it would just take me longer. And then I would get frustrated because I couldn't keep up with everybody. And then before you knew it, I'd be like just pretending I got it to go along, and then I would be hopelessly behind. So, and I had that happen many times. Like that's probably why I had to retake algebra, because I just like I would try to get him to explain it to me and I couldn't understand it the way he'd explain it. And so I would just give up and just, decide like, well, I'll just pretend I get it. But then I didn't get it and then I failed. So I think that's the correct link to cults to consciousness. Let me double check though. Let me double check. But I think it is. Oh, I'm behind in the chat, but it's a good thing. Oh, Miss Sunrise Dawn posted it. Awesome. Thank you, Miss Sunrise Dawn. Yeah, it's a good resource for cult survivor stories, and it's not specific to just Mormon or just Scientology. It's a variety of people's stories. Thanks for doing the YouTube thing for me, Mon. Please hit the like button if you're enjoying yourself. Maybe because of Kristen or Herman instead. If you're here for Herman, that's cool. I'm not going to take that personally. He's a pretty cool fish. He's a cool fish. Or maybe you're here for the emotional support pickle. That's cool too. I will always be around to let you know that you are a big deal. Oh, wow. Miss Dragon just shared a cool photo with me from today. Miss Dragon told us that they do like a tradition, like they do an annual like grave cleaning, and your little granddaughter came with you and helped, and she's so sweet. And Miss Dragon said I could share if I wanted to. So look at that sweet little girl. Mm, I love that. I love that you're getting her involved in a family tradition and helping her kind of remember her relatives too. I think that's great. Hey, Dawn, thanks for coming. It's good to see you. Okay, let's see. Newborn sleeping through the night, urban legend. Yes, I believe it is for sure. Absolutely. Yep. I think that's a good description of it, Slow Morrison. A little bit of charisma, knowledge of psychology, and vague spiritual concepts with a never ending moving of the goalpost, and you have yourself a cult. Yep. I think that's a great description of it, actually. I really do. Like, that's a good one. I think that's also another reason why I've always been interested in cults, because a lot of the time, like some of them, they don't always start out as spiritual groups. Some of them don't have a spiritual component or a religious component at all. Some of them are only self-improvement. Um, and a lot of the times they're built, there's like a thread of truth in there. There's like a thread of accuracy when it comes to like psychological principles or something like that. But then it gets wrapped up in all this other stuff that ends up abusing people and taking advantage of people. Um, so I think like that's the issue is using your knowledge of human behavior and psychology for good, is that hopefully you're moving people more towards genuine human connections and more autonomy and the ability to make their own decisions about those things. I've had a similar experience, Sandy Wandy. There are a lot of Mormons in my area of the world. Like we have a few different Mormon. They don't call them churches; they call them something else, but I can't remember off the top of my head. Um, Wards. They call them wards. There are a lot of wards nearby, and the people I have known, the people individually have always been very kind, and I think that's true of a lot of groups actually, is like the individual people are always really kind and get along great. And then when you see problems, it's like when you pull back the curtain and like someone, tells you stuff that maybe they weren't supposed to, or if you look broader, like on a more systemic level. Oh, yeah, I've seen this one, Mon. There's a great movie called Scientology movie by an English guy who was involved in the production, included Marty Rathbun and Mike Rinder. Interesting movie. That was, what was his name? I know who you're talking about, though. That was interesting. That was an interesting movie. Rick, I'm gonna convert to Pepsi from Orange. Hope you'll accept me still. Rick, I don't judge here. I will still accept you. See, everyone still accepts you. We love you, Rick. Although Dawn is like, "You'll be okay, just keep it on the down low just in case." Louis Theroux, that's his name. That's right. You're right. That is it. That is it. I'm trying to think of my I can't think of a better name. Yeah, so full disclosure, I didn't make these. This was a little set that was gifted to me for Mother's Day by my husband and my son. Like there's like a little potato and there's like a little broccoli and a little turtle. And the turtle came with a little card too. The turtle is he's tiny, he's cute. Let me see what his card says. Because the others are big enough to like hold a little saying, but he's too little. This one says, "You're turtly awesome. I know it, you know it. Teeny Turtle is always here whenever you need a little cheer." I thought that was pretty cute. But see, he's too little to hold his card. So it came with it. Let's see. Let's see. We all need an emotional support pickle, right? Oh, hey, did I see Dawn Gloves come in? I must have missed. Somebody said hi to Dawn Gloves, but I didn't see her come in. Hi, Dawn Gloves. If you are here and I missed your chat, then I apologize. I'm glad you were here. So, so, so glad. Warren says things are always easier if you draw a picture. Experienced professionals have pictures in our head even if we don't write them down. Oh, you mean for the mathematics? That makes sense. I think that, yeah, math is a very abstract. So that makes sense. I was always much helped by visuals. I did a little better in geometry than algebra, but not by much. Janet, I'm hoping I'll someday have a grandchildren. My girls are telling me no way in HE double hockey sticks. Which I'll say it this way because you put the space. When I was, like, in my 20s, I got a cat, and I said to my parents, "Is it okay if you just have a grand cat for a while? Because 'Cause I'm not planning on having a child anytime soon." And they were like, "That's fine," but I was, like, 20 at the time, so they didn't want me to rush either. And, they thought that my brother was not gonna have any kids, but then he had his first baby at 40, so people do things in their own time, when and if they want to, when it's right for them, so it could happen, it could happen. Yeah, exactly, exactly, Slow Morrison. It's interesting that almost all cults end with the absence of free will. Um, I mean, yeah, with a loss of autonomy. That's the issue really, is that you either can't leave or it would cause undue hardship and you would lose all of your social connections and all of your support and your home and your livelihood. That's when it becomes sinister. Mom says a really close girlfriend is a Mormon, but calls herself a bad Mormon as she drinks Coke and smokes like there's no tomorrow. I had friends like this too, Mon. Like, it's funny how the term bad Mormon is so common. It kind of feels like they're judging themselves, or like that has to come from somewhere. And I'm not going to try to do armchair psychology on anybody, but like, if someone is like, I've had friends that called themselves that say, like, I'm a bad Mormon because I do this or that. And it's like, where did you get the idea that you're a bad anything? Like, where'd that come from? Like, that has to come from somewhere. And it kind of bums me out if good people think of themselves that way. Like, good people make mistakes and good people are not perfect and good people have bad habits, but Doesn't make you a bad anything necessarily. So I don't know. Just my 2.5 cents. Yes, good point, Miss Sunrise Dawn. Scientology. If you do insert activity here, we'll release OT 9 and 10. No, wait, you didn't do it right. Do it again. No, wait. Now you have to insert activity before you release them. No, wait. Yeah, they've been doing that with the operating thetan levels 9 and 10 for a long time. I don't think that's going to happen. These dudes are cute. I don't remember if I showed you the potato. I'm going to show you potato. This is positive potato. He says, I may be a tiny potato, but I believe in you. Go do your thing. He's pretty cool. I like Tiny Potato. I look to him a lot for reminders. And then this is Broccoli, who simply says, I'm always rooting for you. Because he is. I mean, look at him. Always rooting for you. Human science is on your side. I think I maybe missed the beginning of this interaction, but I like the I like the sentiment. Human science is on your side. Oh, not Don Gloves, Don Urich. Oh, okay, okay. I got confused. I got confused. I know I said hi to Don Urich. And tell me if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly. Smiley face. We love the smiley faces. Hey, Call Me Matrix Rabbit is here. It's good to see you. How are you feeling? I know you've been through it the last, what is it, like few days, week. I'm glad to see you. I'm glad to see you here. If I'm the person that goes on after 11 because that's when my kid's in bed. And whoever wants to hang out can come hang out. I'm glad you're here. It's good to see you. And Miss Dragon is empathizing. I know hubby's glad to be out. Do they have OT 420? Would OT 420 involve partaking in something smokable? Is that what we're saying here? But wouldn't you have to, like, release OT 9 through 419? Like, that's quite a few levels. Or could you just skip? You know what? This is gonna sound ridiculous, but I think if I had any sway in anything like Scientology, like, they've been talking about these OT 9 and 10 levels for years and years. Like, supposedly, they're already written, and they're just not being released because they're not ready for them, right? Supposedly. I think I would just come in and say, "Okay, guys, here's OT 11." And just to, like, pretend like the whole time that was what it was. And, like, when people say, "What about 9 and 10?" Be like, "What? No." Like, and just, like, not acknowledge it. I have a weird sense of humor though, so maybe that wouldn't be maybe that wouldn't be cool. Maybe it's just me that would find that funny. Oh, you didn't cause any confusion on Ulrich. I just saw somebody else, like, say something about the other Dawn, so, no, you're good. You're good. You didn't cause any confusion. I'm glad you're out of the hospital, Matrix Rabbit, and quit smoking. Woo! So did the hospital, did they hammer that one home? Did they say like, "Hey, it's time. It's time. It's time to do the quit smoking." It's rough. It's rough. I think quitting cigarettes was really really hard for me, and it is still really really hard for me 10 years later sometimes. Like for me, so I smoked for about what is it, like 9 years. And then I quit for about a year when I was in college. And I kind of was able to because like I had a boyfriend that smoked cigarettes, but we were long distance then. So I was only seeing him on the weekends. And so like and I didn't have a lot of friends really. So like my smoking buddy wasn't around. So it was a little easier to not smoke cigarettes. But I just remember the first few days, I was just really like I was kind of depressed. Like I was kind of low key depressed the few days. But, like, come to find out with brain science, that makes sense because nicotine is like, "Boom, here, have all the dopamine right now," and that kinda gives you a little lift, and nicotine, like, leaves your body so fast, it metabolizes so quickly that if we are a cigarette smoker, we are basically in a constant state of withdrawal. Like, anytime you're not smoking a cigarette, you're in nicotine withdrawal. So, it makes it that's why it's so easy to get into the chain smoking thing. And that's why patches are helpful because, like, normally as a cigarette smoker, your blood levels of nicotine are spiking and falling all day long. With the patches, it's like at this steady, even level. And I remember the first time I used a nicotine patch was actually not one of the quit attempt times. I have to say, sorry to say. It was just that I was working, like I was doing my practicum at a federal women's prison at the time, and I could not smoke in there. There was like a smoking lounge for staff, but it would have been a huge hassle for me to get there. Like I would have had to get like my supervisor to like walk me down there. She didn't want to do that. Nobody wanted to do that. So I just wore patches during the day. And it kept me from being a jerk. And I just remember thinking how different it felt to have like this steady, even keel energy level all day long instead of the kind of weird spike that comes from cigarette smoking and being stuck on that hamster wheel. That's what I should call it. I don't really have a name for it. I don't know. I didn't know if I needed a name for my lives, but late night with Kristen Melinda, like it could be. Yeah, I could see that. It's not late, late night, but it is late. Like I could see that. I dig it. I could put that on some thumbnails and see if it sticks. I like it. Yeah, it's good to have these. Can't think of a better name. I know that that made a big difference for me. Um, Like, I don't know if you're like me, but, like, I found like, in terms of, like, creating, like, really, like, genuine connections with other people and friendships, I found that through the lifeboat first, but the lifeboat had grown pretty large at that time, right? Like, lives were usually, like, 100 plus people in there, and I would, like, banter a little bit, but they moved fast, so it was difficult to get, like, like to really get to know people that well. But through them, I found needing a meeting, which goes on now weekdays at 1:40 p.m. Pacific time, 3:40 Central Time Zone, and they were like this size. They were like this 10 to 15 kind of size, and you could, you know, it moved. This chat moved slow enough. You could back and forth with other people and kind of get to know other people, and you could, get go back and forth with the host a little bit more, just because it was fewer people and it moved slower, and that kind of helped me. That helped me like really plug into the community a little more, just because it gave me an opportunity to let people get to know me and I got to know them a little bit. And something cool that they do that I'd like to try to incorporate, I'm just not sure how I wanna do it yet. Something cool that they do is they post a link, like, at the beginning of every time just to say, "Hey, if you wanna join, if you wanna come on screen and talk about something, you're welcome to." Um, I haven't figured out the easiest way to do that with StreamYard yet, but that's something that I think would be cool to do if people were open to it. I know that's something I wanna do, like, book club wise, um, but it also I think there was one day I just, like, on a whim, I was having, like, a stressful day or something, and I was like, "Hey, if it's okay with you guys, I'll just hop on." And, I think I was, like, really shy, but I really enjoyed connecting with people that way. So, I hear you. The small lives are good. Needing a meeting is another small one. Chow Yun Smuts after me, hers stay around, like, 40 people, I think. Um And there are others too. There are others, like, I actually have a whole list. Like, I'll just go through and, like and copy and paste them all here in a minute. Y'all think that's a better name? I have just been, like, throwing random things on the thumbnails each night depending on, like, what I'm thinking of and what mood I'm in, and I guess I can still title them different things, but probably some consistency is smart. Because I think the other day, like, someone actually, like, mistook my channel na like, they thought my channel name was what I had put on the thumbnail, which is fine. I didn't care, but I was like, "Oh, you're not gonna find me with that if you wanted to come back." Oh, Matrix Rabbit, the smoking cigarettes. My body can't take it anymore. It's tough. Did they give you any guidance on how to quit safely and in a way that's not gonna, like, jar you or stress you out too much? Krista Melinda After Dark, epic name, but Rick knows I ripped off from CBC Radio 1. Does Krista Melinda After Dark, is it too, like, like, I don't wanna be too suggestive. Ugh. I mean, like, if that gets people to show up, great, but, I don't want people to get confused, it's not that kinda show. If I wanted that kinda show, I'd go start that kinda channel somewhere else. But I like that. I think that is an epic name. I mean, it is After Dark, unless you're in Australia. Like, if you're in Australia, it's daylight, so but I guess in a lot of places, it's after dark. Yes, that's what I want it to be, a safe place with emotional support veggies. Yeah, exactly. I love that, thank you. That makes me happy. Ooh, this is a good question from Warren. Do e-meters measure anything real, if irrelevant to the stuff Scientologists claim? If the same person gets the same numbers each time, but different people get different numbers, it would seem so. Well, I'm behind the chat. So first I'm going to take a look and see if someone else has already answered your question because I don't want to be redundant here because someone may know better than I do because we might have people who actually have, you know, spent more time on e-meters. Miss Sunrise Dawn says, Warren, I think they're similar to lie detectors. Um, let's see who else, who else, who else. The e-meter was invented by a chiropractor, Sandy Wandy. Yes, yes, Sandy Wandy is correct. Sandy is one of the people I think may know more about it than me, so listen to her. It was invented by a chiropractor and then shared, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe shared with L. Ron Hubbard, and then he took it and ran with it. But in the early days of Scientology, there was no e-meter. He just kind of the auditing was all just like talking to people. And if you looked at it, it probably just looked like psychoanalysis, but you're asking different, very specific, pointed questions. And if you read about kind of the early application of it, really, it's like hypnosis, a lot of it, and but it's hypnosis that ideally it's applied to self-improvement, um, but it can be applied to nefarious things as well, so but as far as e-meters go, like, personally, I have one personal experience with an e-meter. When I was, like I don't remember exactly how old, I think I was, like, 18 or 19, we went to the State Fair of Texas at Fair Park in Dallas. And I don't know that they do this anymore, but they were back then. But there was a booth set up in one of the exhibits, and it was 2 folks from the Church of Scientology, 2 guys, and they each had an e-meter set up. And it was like an informational booth, like, "Hey, come sit down with us and we'll ask you questions, like, see what it's all about." Now at this point, my brother and I had seen the South Park episode and we had like started reading Dianetics just to see. And, we were already kind of the opinion that like, I don't, I don't buy it. Um, but we were kind of jerks. And so we were like, hey, let's have some fun here. Now, I didn't really like, I just sat there and I wasn't a jerk about it. I sat and I kind of talked a little bit and I held the cans, what they call them, the cans, and he sort of started to ask some of the basic intro questions, and I was just kind of like playing with the mechanical mechanism of them. Like, and I noticed like, hey, if I squeeze harder, this needle moves. If I loosen my hands up, this needle moves this other way. Squeeze hard, it moves. Temper how hard you're squeezing, it changes where it moves to. So from that experience, it was purely like just a mechanical response based on how hard you squeeze. Now, I think technically you're not supposed to purposefully squeeze a certain amount. I think that like the idea behind it is like it's supposed to pick up on how stressed you are, your physiological arousal levels. But to me, I noticed squeeze harder, it moved. And then I just said, "Hey, look what I can do." And I said, "Okay, I'm good. Like, have a nice day. Have a nice life. Sorry to bother you." My little brother, on the other hand, like, just kind of sat there and was just asking him questions like, "So how did you get involved in this? Like, so what do you think?" Like, he was just not being a jerk, really. Our original intentions may have been kind of jerky, but we didn't ultimately act like jerks. He was just asking, "What are you doing here?" Basically, like, "How'd you get involved in this?" But I'm sure there's a gazillion people who've actually done hours and hours of auditing on e-meters that could tell you way more about it than I could. Matrix Rabbit says, "I feel it in my heart. I've smoked for 40 years." Yeah, that will affect you for sure, for sure. But on the plus side, like I have seen statistics that show that like incrementally, like physically, things get so much better after you quit. Like even just hours after the last cigarette, like your lung capacity already starts to improve and things like that. It's really encouraging. Um, I did a whole bunch of stuff to try to help me quit. and it was hard. Ultimately, the last time I quit, and this would be the most recent time, which was the last time I smoked a cigarette was October of 2013. And I say knock on wood because that's like fortunate every day that it stays that way, because it's one of those things that like had me. Like I really liked cigarettes and if they were around, I would smoke them and so I'm not around them. But for me, the last time I actually ended up like my quit attempt worked because I moved. Like I used the patches and I used this Quit Smart program and I did all this other stuff, but I also moved apartments. Like I moved out of my parents' house and I moved in with my boyfriend at the time, like to a different city, not super far, but a different city. Like I wasn't hanging out with a lot of the same people I'd been hanging out with before. And I don't think you necessarily have to move, but there's some kind of effect in your brain that happens by changing your physical location and changing things about what you're looking at day to day that help you make shifts like that. Um, I mean, I guess I could have replicated it without moving by like rearranging the furniture in my room or something, which sounds nuts, but it forces your brain to make new neural pathways that it wasn't doing before. What happens if the needle doesn't move on the cans? I'm not sure. I'm sure there is a process and a procedure for what they are supposed to do. I would head over to one of the SPTV channels to find that out, but I imagine that they would keep asking questions until it moved, or they would say, like, hey, have you eaten? Have you hydrated enough? You need to be what's called sessionable. If you don't eat or drink enough, you can't be in auditing, but I'm not sure. Right? Sandy Wanny says, I'm a former smoker years ago, but at night when I dream, I smoke. Yeah, yeah. So mostly, like, I don't think about it as much as I used to, but like there are days, like there are really stressful days where that is the first place my head goes. That it's like, dang, a cigarette would be really nice right now. Just because it's such a well worn pathway. It just was something that I just did over and over again for long enough that it just stuck. And even 10 years later, it's still every now and then like, that would be good. I have to like logically talk myself out of it. I have to like stop and remind myself, actually, no, it wouldn't be good. And here are the reasons why. Um, it would feel good for a minute. And then I would just want another one. And then I would start coughing again. And then I would just be right back up to a half a pack a day again. And I'd be blowing all my money and really unhealthy and really bad example for my kids. So I have to talk myself through all of that stuff. Slow Morrison says, I vape, but at work I chew nicotine gum. That's a good solution. That's what we call harm reduction. Like you're not inhaling something burning. That's the first step to getting healthier, I think. Patches are good too. Janet G says, it's weird, but I've never smoked. And in my dreams, I sometimes smoke. I find that weird. Warren says, wait, you started smoking when you were 13 or less. I was, how old was I? I was 16. I was 16 when I first started smoking. And then I habitually did until I was like, when was it? One of my college years. And then I quit for a year and then I started again. And then I quit again for good in 2013. 2013, not when I was 13 or less. Oh, I like this one too. This would be a good name too. Kristen M. Nightline. I like it, Matrix. That's genius. You have good ideas, dude. I'm gonna remember that one. Kristen M. Nightline. So we've got what? Kristen Melinda After Dark, Kristen M. Nightline. I like that one. Warren, an ex Scientologist, said they would always think of nice things, so they never measured anything else. It's always the same. They were not happy with the results. Oh, like the E-meter, is it higher when people are stressed or lower when they're relaxed? My understanding is you're supposed to try to achieve what's called a floating needle. Like you've got, and again, I was never a Scientologist. There are people who know far more about this than I do, who have more experience and Correct me if I'm wrong. And actually, I mean, I don't want to get too far into it because I kind of just want to say like they know better than I do. But you're supposed to try to achieve this floating needle, like you've got your dial, and you've got like all the way one side and like all the way to the other side, and like you know that you have like achieved some kind of understanding if you can get to where the needle is just kind of like floating in the middle like this. That's my understanding. But I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong. I was never a Scientologist. I just read about it. So, I don't know where the beginning of this started, but Miss Dragon, I don't think you're old. Or if you are, you're just as old as you should be, you know? I don't know. Yeah, yeah, it's overwhelming and easier to not have your comments seen when it's too big of a group. I think I remember like, the first time I ever, like, wrote a comment in the chat, I think it was in the lifeboat. I was like, "There's like 150 people here, like, no one's gonna notice this. This is not going like, no one's gonna notice this. I'm just gonna say something. No one's gonna notice it." And then it got put up and I was like, "Oh, no, now I'm here. Now I exist." So, but yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, it's a little less daunting, like, to see it up in front of, like, 10 or 15 people instead of 150. Yeah, I've gotten some good suggestions for books to do for the first book club, but one of them, like, I got a good suggestion for a book that's being written. Like, the author is actually like a member of like the lifeboat community, the SPTV community. And so since we know this person, I want to reach out to them and make sure that like it's kosher with them and like, I mean, I'm sure they'd like the support of people like, getting the book, but it might be kind of weird to have people like talking about it in a book club kind of way, like right when it's brand new. So I just want to make sure they're okay with it. But I'm really excited about that. I really am. That's been something I've been wanting to get going for a long time. I just wasn't sure how to set it up. And my vision is that like we would pick a book each month and it could be something different. It could be fiction, it could be nonfiction, self-help, whatever. Like it doesn't have to be the same kind of genre every time. And if you want to read along with us, you can read along with us. And then at one of these lives, like towards the end of the month, it could be the book club live. And then if people want to jump on screen and discuss it, they can, or they can discuss it in the chat. Or if they didn't read it that time, they can just hang out. And I think that would be a lot of fun. Hey, did I miss Bust to Crochet? I missed a comment here. What happened? Somebody said, "Hi, Blessed to Crochet," but I don't see her. I may just be losing my marbles because it's late. We are Dirty Stay Ups. Those of us who go over to Chow Yun Smut Cricket's channel after this. Dirty Stay Ups. I love her channel. Hers is another good one that I was like, oh, I feel so seen here. I feel so welcome. I love her. She's awesome. She was funny today too. Like in the lifeboat chat, she is making some funnies. She's really cool. I want to be her when I grow up. I don't think actually, I think we're this probably around the same age. So that's kind of silly. But that's something I like to say about people I appreciate and admire, like regardless of how old they are. I say, I want to be you when I grow up. See? I get it. I have a blank OnlyFans. I don't want anyone taking my name. Yeah, yeah, I get it. I gotcha. That makes sense. Y'all be sure to check out Miss Dragon's channel if you haven't already. She does lives in the afternoons as well, most weekdays. And then she has cool shorts and stuff. Some of them are really funny and some of them are a little bit deeper and make you think, but it's a good mixture of the 2. Hey, Kim Roy. Kim Roy says, "I'm always lurking most of the time. My husband requires care periodically, and I listen while I'm helping them." I hear ya. That makes sense. There was a summer where that was like my whole existence was like I was taking care of my husband and my kiddo because my husband had had multiple surgeries, and then my kiddo is, little. So any kind of interactions I had, it was like, "Hey, I'll check in and type something. Oh, gotta go get some for them that they need." But I couldn't get out to like hang out with friends, but it gives you a way to connect with people even while you're doing everything you need to do. Um, I know that can get lonely, so I'm glad that you're here and I'm glad to know you. Thanks for coming to hang out. Ooh, ooh. Is Chow up yet? Oh, Mary sent me a message too. Let's see, let's see. Oh, Mary sent me a picture of little sleepy puppy. Oh, there's Mary. I'm just super behind in the chat, y'all. Hi, blessed you crochet, Mary. Good to see you. Fell asleep and woke up enough to pop my head in. That's cool. I'm glad that you popped your head in. Is the e-meter like a Ouija board? I don't know. It depends who you ask, I guess. A Ouija board's got two people kind of influencing it, though. I don't know. Some people have like really intense feelings about Ouija boards, though. Like some people really are like, don't mess with it. It's like some people feel very strongly about Ouija boards. Just saying. Just saying. I am respectful. Respectful of all opinions. But like me as a kid and my friend like doing sleepovers, I'm pretty sure the Ouija board was just us moving it around because we were having fun. Hey, I didn't know that, Matrix. You're a bass player? That's really cool. Really, Slow Morrison? Your channel my channel has my original music. I also have a channel called Uppers Recovery. That's really cool. I'm gonna look that up. But before I forget, I also have to share this adorable picture of Mocha the puppy dog that Mary sent before I forget. Look at that sleepy doggy. Mm, how do you not love a sleepy doggy curled up on the pillow? That's adorable. Thank you for sharing that, Mary. I love that. I agree. I agree with Rick here. Whoever's thinking about doing a stream, just do it. You'll grow so much. Enjoy connection saves lives. Yeah, I hear you. The first one of these I did, I was just playing with it. I was just like, how do you do it? And I didn't use StreamYard. I just used YouTube. And I was just like, oh, just click the button. And I just call it test. And I'm like, no one's going to show up here. But then like one person did. And I don't know how, I don't know how because I didn't tell anyone I was doing it. Um, but I guess it was I have some friends on here that, like, even though they have nothing up, they have no videos up, like, I subscribe to them anyway, and I put my notifications on. That way, I'm like, "If you ever decide to, like, go live on your channel, if you ever decide to start putting up content, I'll get notifications so I can see it and support you." So I'll do that sometimes. I didn't catch the first part of this, but Matrix says I don't know what to ask. I'm not sure. What did I miss? Looking. Yeah, I must have missed the first part of that. I'm not sure what you mean about. Oh, I see. Mary said, I've been trying to get Major to touch base with you about small YouTube channels. Okay. So Mary from Blessed to Crochet has a lot of really good resources for like places to help like grow your channel if you're a smaller creator. Um, Tuber Chat is a good resource. It's also a great place to connect with other small creators, and you can do things like trade playlists. Like I can watch a playlist of one of theirs, they can watch a playlist of one of mine, and we can kind of get to know each other's content. We can show up to each other's lives, and it also gets you to expand beyond like the little community you already have. So you get to meet new people, and like I've met people that do unboxing channels, like Jessie Miller. She comes here quite a bit. She does unboxings. And you also get to learn about like different kinds of content you might not have otherwise too. So that's pretty fun. Ahoy! 7th year. So good to see you. Thanks for coming to hang out. You still have using dreams sometimes slow Morrison, even after 10 years clean from meth. Yeah. Yeah. It's weird how like it when you get into a substance or something like that, it like wears a path in your brain that just wants to stick there. Like, and it is a neural, like physical pathway in the brain. And it's like, I think of it like if you spent years and years walking over this certain path in the woods, all of the trees and all of the bushes would stop growing there because you're constantly walking back and forth along that path. And then suddenly you decide, okay, I'm not going to use that path anymore. And at first, and you're like, I'm going to go this way instead. But like, there's no path there yet. And you have to like hack through bushes and trees and stuff to get there. living without using the thing, whatever it is. That's hacking through bushes and having to like start from scratch. And then meanwhile, there's this well-worn path I can just take to, your brain wants to go back to the habit of it. And I mean, gradually you get that new path created, right? But for whatever reason, like certain substances are just so effective at wearing this other path that it never quite grows back over, like the trees and the bushes never completely cover it over again. So it's kind of always there, like going, and you have to like purposefully, you have to have things in place to support you to say, like, no, no, we're not using that path anymore. We're using this new nice one that I created for myself. But yeah, it sticks with you a long, long time. Miss Sunrise Dawn says, "Yeah, same here, but with Coke." Yep, yep. Is there a reason that people don't like people say Coke or not online? I've noticed that like people will write Coke in the chat, but they don't necessarily like say it in the live streams. Is that just to differentiate it from Coca-Cola, I guess? I don't know. I just wanted to make sure I'm not breaking any YouTube rules. I wasn't Miss Dragon says I wasn't physically addicted, but the habit. Driving smokes. Yeah, I would smoke cigarettes a lot while I was driving, for sure. Let's see. Oh, we have a congratulations? Where's Mary's award? Let's see, let's see. I'm going back in the chat. 10 years clean from meth. That's amazing. That's awesome. I don't think I have a thing like that. I have this. I have this. That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm so excited. Miss Sunrise Dawn says, I think I might have tried meth once or twice, but Coke was my drug of choice. I got to a point where someone would hand me a drug and I'd take it without knowing what it was. I kind of was there at one point in college. I just like I was what I would say I would call dangerously open-minded. Like it didn't always have much regard for the safety of the thing. This is another Mary's dropping a couple of channels that are good to help if you're a small creator hoping to grow your channel. This is another good one. Let's see. We got math again. The math of my cigarette smoking journey started at age 16, went for 9 years, quit in college. So you took a gap between high school and college, or you persevered at college classes longer than most. So when I graduated high school, I went to community college for 2 years and I kept smoking through that whole time. So let me think. I was 16 and then I kept smoking cigarettes until, let's see, I was in college and at community college, like through age 18, 19, 19 to 20. Then I went to university. So I probably smoked for about 5-ish years. And then I quit for about a year at university. And then I started again. Then I started again and continued to. So college was, I'll have to map it out. I'll have to write it out for you. Yeah, I still need to reach out to her, Sandy. I thought I did on Facebook Messenger, but it didn't save. So I don't know if it was my connection didn't send or what, but I need to check in with her again. Kim Roy says, booze was my drug of choice. Dang, I was that girl in college who drank whatever you put in my hand and made myself puke so I could drink more. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's rough. I was kind of like, when I had to, I could button it up and, like, put on a good face and, like, get done the things I needed to get done. Like, I could get to class and, like, get my, exam done or whatever, but in between all of that, like, I would get emotionally dysregulated. I would get depressed or something like that, and I would turn to stuff like this as an unhealthy coping mechanism. So I think probably the only thing that I was, like, physiologically addicted to was probably nicotine. but everything else was like, I want this thing to make me feel better. Like I'm emotionally upset in this moment and I would look to substance, whatever it was, to try to feel better in that moment instead of using good, healthy coping skills. MSD. Is that me? Does MSD have a book for book club? We almost have one, but I wanna reach out to the person that wrote it first. So I'm on StreamYard. So I'm getting behind in the chat because people are talking faster than I'm keeping up with, but I think it gives me everything. I think it gives me all of the chats, but, um, it should be all, but it is on StreamYard. Oh, I would love to read some of your books, Miss Sunrise Dawn. That would be really, really cool. Yeah, at some point I get behind enough that I can't, like, put up every single one, and even though I want to. Mary says, Matrix, my biggest piece of advice is to find live content and start to make connections. Take a lesson out of Tommy's book. This is how the lifeboat grew. Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, I did, I just noticed this mocked Murdochical. Don't grow up though. It's a trap. Heck yeah. Don't grow up though. It's a trap. Well, see, no, I don't wanna this is Chow Yun's thing, Chow Yun Smut's thing, though, that's Cricket's thing. I don't wanna take that, like, I don't wanna do that. I wanna I had to come up with something different. Okay. Oh, okay, cool, cool. I'm gonna search your channel while I'm thinking about it, Slow Morrison, unless you have already done that, because 'cause I'm so there you are, I'm back, that was quick. Awesome. I love it, I love it. And good to see you, Sophia. Makshmir Dakakal, thanks for coming to hang out. Oh, I love that. My mom is almost 95, and she still doesn't know what she wants to be when she grows up. I love that. Keep that energy. That's what we call beginner's mind. That's a mindfulness thing, is the idea that if you approach every situation with a beginner's mind, you're open-minded to learning new things and less likely to be bothered or stressed out by something being the way it is. Because if you approach a thing with a beginner's mind, you're not invested in it staying a certain way or being anything other than what it is when you find it. That's kind of the energy I bring to that. Sleepy doggies are life, uppers recovery. Thank you. Slash slow Morrison. Oh my gosh, really? Your mom still drives her standard Mini Cooper. I always thought Mini Coopers were funny looking. Heck yes. This is what I'm here for. Uppers recovery. This channel is lit. Sleepy dogs, cults, and emotional support pickles. You know what? That's what I live for. I cannot niche down. I've never been good at that. I have to do a little bit of all the things. Sleepy dogs, cults, and emotional support pickles. Yes, this is true. Mary at Bluster Crochet has a great channel where she interviews a lot of diverse and interesting people for sure. Hey, look who it is. It's Cosmic Christie. Good to see you. More friends from uh, the future. Thanks for coming to hang out. I'm glad you're here. Let's see. Let's see. I got super behind on the chat, you guys. You'll have to forgive me. Oh, yeah. Mary, that was so sweet of you to make that for me. I really, really appreciate that. Really? This is interesting. I heard YouTube can ping you if the full word for Coke is written out in the chat. So I write Coke instead. Huh. I did not know that. That's interesting. That's really interesting. What is another you could say the white powdery substance derived from coca leaves. You could say that. That's kind of a mouthful though. I'm gonna say hi to Chow and go to bed. Okay. Good night, Matrix Rabbit. I'm glad that you came to hang out and say hi. I'm glad that you're back home. I'm really excited for you that you quit smoking. I think that is awesome, awesome. I know you kind of had to, but I mean, sometimes that's the best thing, right? And that quitting nicotine is rough. It's really rough. It made me so cranky. I can't remember being crankier than when I quit smoking cigarettes. I was so mad. It helped me to find a ritual to take its place. Like, for a while, I would drink a lot of hot tea so that the steam coming off it could kinda give me the visual of the smoke from a cigarette. It sounds silly, but having a ritual is helpful. Oh, heck yes. I don't know how I keep up with any of this without the mods here. Y'all are awesome. Thank you so much. I love this, Cosmic. I'm addicted to not feeling like crap. Yeah, totally. Totally. It's just that sometimes the route that we take to not feeling like crap is not the most healthy, right? I love that though. I think that's very accurate. I resonate with that. I do. Oh, okay. Slow Morrison is in the USA, but I get why. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Slow Morrison is in the USA. You are on day 330? Once again, I'm not sure what the once again means, but 330 is amazing. That's that's awesome. This doesn't make noise, but it makes me feel very celebratory. And it's also a good replacement for if you feel like a cigarette, but it's just fun. I think that's awesome, 7th. I think you're awesome. That's fantastic. I don't worry about what I say anymore unless it's online. I argue the point and I've won every Facebook ban thingo I haven't deserved. Oh, yeah. Oh, wow, I got super behind in the chat again. This is awesome. I'm glad you've heard, so no explanation needed. I still think it's a great name. I'm glad you like the vibe here, Slow Morrison. I'm gonna come over before I keep looking down to go to your channel and subscribe to it, and then I look over into the chat again and I'm coming back. So I'm gonna go look for it right now so I don't forget. Let's see. There you are. Subscribe. Awesome. And I think the mods already shared your link, but if they didn't, I will do so. I'm so glad that channels like this exist. I think there needs to be more of us. I don't think there can be enough. This is awesome. Thank you for sharing. Let's see. Let's see. Share. Copy link. Doot, doot, doot. Doot, 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 doot. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to change the title of this to give it some to make it make more sense to people. There we go. Oh, looks like Chow Yun Smut just went live, you guys. So I'm gonna try to catch up with the chat a little bit, and I will direct you guys to head on over to see her because she goes live around this time most nights between 1 a.m. Central Standard Time, and sometimes goes on for a couple hours, sometimes more, depending on what's going on. So please go over there and support her. She has the same kind of like chill, like the vibe of like helping everybody be seen and interacting and positive and supportive. But I'm gonna catch up here just to make sure. Yeah, I got thrown into Facebook jail once and I don't even know why. It was only for 24 hours. I still don't know why, but I guess it doesn't matter. Thanks, Mon. Yeah, please do the YouTube things. Please hit the like button. If you like hanging around here, please subscribe. If you want to tell me how you don't like it so much, hit the thumbs down button. That's cool too. I can take it. It's fine. Just have the courage of your convictions. Don't be a fence sitter. Yeah, I think I gotta figure out how to do this. Can you put a mod to put the chats up so you don't miss the wheat and the chaff? Lots of chat. Yeah, I know there's a lot of like going back of people just like saying hi and stuff, which I love and I want people to do that, but I also don't want to miss like when people have like a specific question or something like really serious to talk about too. Um, so I'm getting better. I'm getting better at that, I hope. Awesome. I'm excited for you to go live, Flo Morrison. I'll put on my notifications so I can try to be there when you do. I love lives. That's when you can like kind of really get to know people and chill out a little bit. Hopefully it's chill, depending. Or it can just be silly. All right, guys. Well, I think I'm going to hop on over to Chow Yun Smut's channel. Before I do, I'm going to share my links that I love to share. If my computer cooperate with me, because it's very slow. It's a it's a Chromebook, which you would think would be fast enough, but not always. So, for anyone who's still here and for anyone on the replay crew who stumbled across me by accident and is like, well, what the heck is this? This is a place where we connect and hang out and talk about whatever we want to talk about. This is the lifeboat where I met all of these fine, cool people. And I highly recommend you go check it out. Except for a couple people wandered in, but a lot of the ways I made the connections is from the lifeboat. So it's a great place to continue to do that and make connections. And I would like to recommend going over if you're not ready to go to bed yet, if you're not tired yet, and you just need to, you need some more time like this to connect with other people and, have this chill vibe of going back and forth. Go over and see our friend Chow Yun Smut, Cricket. That's Cricket's channel. She has a really, really cool live that she's doing right now. And I think we've already posted it in the chat, but just in case, I'm going to throw the direct link to it in there and do ridiculous little things to fill space and time while I find links to post. There we go. That should take you directly to Chow Yun Smut's live right now. See you in Hoth. May the force be with you. Heck yes. I'll check out your music channel too, Slow Morrison. That sounds cool. Y'all have a fantastic evening, morning, day, whatever it happens to be where you are. And thanks for coming to hang out. And I will see you in one of the other places we all like to congregate and hopefully lots more. Thanks for coming. Thanks for saying hi. I'll get better at keeping up with this chat, you guys, one of these days. One of these days. Thanks, y'all. Have a good night. Bye.